We're free to go and exercise good judgment, to use good sound principles. But at the end of the day, we're not going to bat 1,000. If we lose something, we lose something. But it's not going to be the end of the road for us. And our identity is not tied up into it so much that if we lose, then we completely unravel. Welcome to another episode of the At Depth podcast. This is the show where we sit down with leaders, entrepreneurs, investors, and some other really keen business minds with one super simple purpose. We're here to explore the through lines that connect what we value, so think about what's inside, to how we lead, invest, and build. So what do we value to what comes out of us? That's the whole point of the podcast. My guest today is someone very special to me. He's been a lifelong investor. He's a fantastic storyteller too. He's got a powerful ability to articulate and clarify the complex ideas that are always beating around this world into some very simple, practical words. He's a multi-time founder, partner, coach, and advisor. And today he's a founding member of Covepilot. Covepilot is an alternative investing platform for family and friends that exists to practice stewardship, real, small, and away from the public markets. Lastly, he's my dad and a real hero in my life. So let's get going. It's time to find our depth. Welcome, Dad. Hey, thank you, buddy. AKA Benjamin.
Well, this is going to be a fun conversation. I don't know how many people get to interview their fathers, but I'm sure it's a smaller list than most people realize.
Well, what a privilege.
Well, I'm glad you're doing this with me. This is fun. I'm glad we get to hit the record button on one of our conversations rather than just trying to remember the thing the whole time.
Okay.
I love the way that you talk about what Covepilot is. And this entire conversation is really going to be going back to the beginning. But I think it's fun to quickly identify where we are today. So could you describe Covepilot? And then I'd also love for you to just describe this whole office on Main Street open door policy so that people can get a little bit of a picture of where you're sitting right now.
We're at the corner of Main and Main in downtown Fredericksburg, Texas, thriving metropolis of a population of 11,000 people, but probably get about 3 million visitors a year. And we landed here about 34 years ago after my wife, Stacy, Ben's mom, had this kind of wild notion to raise our children in the country, in a small town, what it would be like. So we moved from a pretty sweet community in Dallas and the Park Cities to Fredericksburg. And I kind of say sometimes, because my office was really interesting there, we went from the pit house to the outhouse. And it lived on 20 acres out in the country. And so we've had an office here on the little outpost on Main Street for all these years. It stems from the idea that basically when we came, we'd run across this Leonardo da Vinci quote that says, "Simplicity is the highest form of sophistication." I thought, that really does kind of describe what our journey has been and what it was kind of leaving Dallas, but to go to a simpler place. And one of the things that appealed to us about coming to Fredericksburg and living out in the country is we just didn't have ambient light. We didn't have ambient noise. And it was a quiet place to think, and just to watch you and your sisters thrive in that country setting was just a joy. But then we would pivot 7 miles out of town to come to downtown and be in the mix of the business world. And my career at the time I was curious whether I could continue on. But then there was this magic thing called call forwarding, which your generation hardly even knows. But I call forwarded my phone from landline at my office in Dallas to our little landline here. And so my clients, I still have the same 214 area code. My clients could call me. Oftentimes they just didn't know where I was until one time I think I was out baling hay, and I had one of those little flip phones, one of those little older versions of the flip phone. And I picked it up and didn't cut the tractor off. And one of my clients said, "Hey, where are you? Are you playing golf?" Like, "No, I'm actually baling hay." So they knew we had the place in the country, but they didn't realize that we lived here full time. And he calls, "Hey, can you have lunch today?" I said, "No, I can't today, but I can tomorrow." then my cover was blown. But the idea was, could we live a simple life and yet be involved in a sophisticated real estate world that I knew and become very familiar with and pretty adept at? Bridging those two worlds has been a real privilege and a remarkable journey.
You move from taking calls in the tractor to the office. And so kind of pick it up there a little bit with this idea of I'm not going to be a farmer in Fredericksburg.
Yeah. Well, that was kind of one of our dreams because I loved gardening and, studied all about organic gardening and organic farming and thought, if we don't make a living in the real estate business, then maybe we could be an organic truck farming operation that could sell our produce to Whole Foods or whomever at the time.
What year was that? I think you should timestamp that idea.
1993.
Yeah. So before it was cool, everybody. It was before it was cool.
It was just a passion, just one of the many interests that we've had over the years. But it was that whole idea of again the themes of simplicity, and then mixed with the sophisticated real estate business. And then it was just a journey of faith to say, Lord, what do you want us to put our hands to? But the idea of a family farm and the family on the farm was really intriguing. But honestly, the real estate business just kept me busy. And so I became, as you know, we became more gentleman farmers rather than full on trying to make a living doing it. But we kept it up as a hobby. And I think it's meaningful for you because we learned a lot of simple business and practices of buying a steer from a neighbor or 5 steers at a neighbor. And then we're going to finish them off and keep them for a year and then go sell them and make money. And that's one of the things I think you look back on with fondness and say, hey, yeah, I used to kind of learn how economics really worked from a practical standpoint. There was always that, again, that idea of where can we just employ simple, common sense, biblical financial practices wherever we are. So in the meantime, I might be baling hay in the morning or shoveling those calves around, but then come to the office where I would have potentially a pipeline of 15 or 20 different real estate deals that I was working on with people all over the country. And as you recall, my niche was putting the financing, putting the money together for income producing real estate, apartments, industrial buildings, office buildings, hotels, the different kind of property types. And my clients were institutional investors, life insurance companies, pension funds. Those institutions have a portfolio filled with good real estate mortgages. And that's kind of where I learned a lot about it. Prior in my Dallas days, I was a lender as well as a mortgage banker. And so I got to be a part of some really interesting transactions and watch North Dallas grow, watch other metropolitan cities grow, San Antonio, Austin, San Angelo, Amarillo, Tyler, Longview. Lots of those towns that we've done deals in over the years.
You've done deals all over the country as well, though.
Yeah, we sure have. Atlanta, did a mall in Atlanta, the shopping center up in Philadelphia. My role was I kind of had the keys to the golden goose.
Mm.
And people that need money for projects knew that I was capable. And if we believed in the project, then I would really shepherd it and try to get it done for them. And then I had these great relationships with the lending community to find the match. Remember the name of the person in Fiddler on the Roof, which was the matchmaker
Yinta.
in the
Yinta.
Yinta. So I was a financial Yinta, and God was gracious. We made lots of matches over the years from our little outpost here on Main Street. I would do business all over the country, but could still live here. We could be home based here. I could jump in the car and be home in about 10 minutes, and we were in a whole nother world out where the birds were singing, and hopefully there would be some hay in the fields.
I think that captures sort of the contrasting spirit that people feel inside of Covepilot. This able to sort of fly up here at the high altitude and go around and get to places, but when we come home and land, the home airport is pretty quiet and pretty tucked away.
Yeah, it really is. So if we segue to Covepilot for a moment, the impetus there is, we helped another guy build a fund.
Very successfully.
Yeah, very successfully. And honestly, we walked away from it because it wasn't ethically aligned with what we're about. We could see that there was a need for putting folks in a fund that was geared towards simple to understand hard assets that we could kick and touch, foreclose on if we needed to, but something that had intrinsic value that wasn't going to volatilely move kind of, I'd say, somewhat irrationally. And I'm just going to compare it to the stock market that has its place. I just felt like that there was a opportunity for us to take our own family money, other friends and family money, and apply this principles that I learned from these big institutions because a lot of the way they constructed their portfolios were geared this way. They're generationally lasting assets. So commercial real estate, oil and gas, the list goes on, and we can talk more about those things. But the underlying idea is, can we generate cash flow with safe investments with people we know and trust? And can we put our arms around it and really understand it? And it can't be so esoteric or so far out there that we just couldn't get it hands around. And the impetus was, which was a real blessing to me, is that, you and Byron were like, and I was of the same mind as like, hey, I've been blessed with all this experience. And one of the best things in life to do is to pass that on. So how could we intentionally pass that on to you, to Byron, to anyone else who was interested of what maybe I learned over the years? So that's been the intentional part of Covepilot is it's a knowledge transfer from one generation to the next about things that are so important to us in terms of stewardship. And we can unravel that for a moment, what that means to us in an intentional way that hopefully benefits our greater community. It's not about us. It's about how do we love and serve people in the gifts and talents that we've been given. And this happens to be one of them. It's been fun to be with you and Byron and been fun to go explore some of these other ideas. We've uncovered some really neat opportunities that we put into the portfolio that have done well. And we've always had steady gains. And we know we can talk to people about compounding, the whole principle of compounding. But if we can just steady at it and reinvest 7 or 8%, then you double your money in a pretty short period of time. And that's something, in other words, it's a beautiful thing to be able to use our gifts and talents in order to create a surplus. If we can help people gain money, then hopefully we can encourage them to give that money away if they don't need it. So the idea of let's invest, let's make a profit, let's continue to invest some of our seed corn, as we would say, and then give money away. Go bless people and be involved in other things that are, whether it's starting a business or giving to a school, which has been a large part of our journey here in Fredericksburg, helping start 2 private Christian schools, being a part of those things. And all of that kind of escalates into a fulfilling life, a fun, fulfilling life, not without struggle for sure, and not without strain along the way. I mean, this is not an easy thing to do, but it is something we've been called to do, and what a blessing. So Covepilot is that accumulation of simple principles, but it takes a certain skill and experience to go navigate that world successfully. And I think we've done it.
It's interesting because part of the birth story was that all those years that you were doing real estate, you were also doing little deals with friends along the side.
Yeah.
At some point in time, I mean, it made total sense. If you just keep telling people, "Oh, here's a deal we're doing. Oh, here's a deal we're doing," it made sense to formalize that to some degree.
That's a great point. And I think part of it is in my personality, I don't operate with a lot of fear, and I hope a lot of people don't. I think there is an option in life not to, but it was also understanding in the world of business early on how to take what I'd call calculated risks. But I would do that in my first jobs, working at a bank in Dallas, understood that, kind of get my feet wet in lending in a small bank there. And then went on to another career for 2 years in the kind of really odd world of reinsurance world, where I worked for a company owned by the Mellon family called General Reinsurance, where you insure insurance companies on catastrophic risks. I won't digress into that, but when I showed up at that office and I'd gotten that job, I thought, "Oh my word, they're speaking a whole nother language." I had no clue what they were really talking about, but they said, "Oh, we'll teach you," and they did. But it was understanding how you take risks. And in the insurance world, then a buddy of mine called and said, "Hey, there's a 2 openings at a big family real estate firm and savings and loan firm in Dallas that they want 2 young guys to work in their mortgage banking department." Well, I didn't know what that was. I had to go get my finance textbook from University of Texas, look in the glossary to figure out what that was. But I somehow got the job, and the man who interviewed me, he was interested in the bank job, interested in a general read job, but he was really interested in the fact that I'd earned 100% of my college expenses. And he said, "Well, how did you do that?" I said, "Well, I worked at the gas station. I worked at the state capitol. I washed pots at the fraternity house." I didn't have a choice. I mean, if I wanted to go to college, I needed to pay for it. My folks were loving, wonderful people, and they encouraged me to do it, but I just didn't have the wherewithal to fund that. But they didn't need to in our home and in our family, as you know, everybody were hardworking people. Nobody was looking for a handout, and everybody needed to work and carry their own weight. And I was had the good fortune of doing that. Had a job probably from the 6th grade on. When he asked me that question about that, he had said I'd never seen it. It's because most of the kids I interview in the past really go to schools and their parents pay for it all. So, well, that'd be nice. Wasn't my story. But I get the job at the Murray family, the Murray Savings and Loan and Murray Mortgage, and they couldn't have been nicer and taught me so many things, gave me a lot of responsibility as a young guy. But I got exposed to the investment world. But simultaneously, to get to your point, was I had a buddy that I met at church, and we thought, let's go buy a rent house. And so that was our very first deal, 1977, buying a rent house on Fisher Road. We needed $5,000 and I had 2,500. He had 2,500. And then we went and bought that house, put our 5 grand down. And I think we paid $37,500 for that house.
Oh my gosh, in Dallas.
Times have changed, my friend. Uh,
Woo-wee.
anyway, the house is still there. And then understanding, okay, I thought, well, I'm going to study the economics. He was a CPA. So, I mean, we could pencil whip the thing really good. And we kept that thing. I bought him out. I kept it on and had roommates. And then when I married your mom, my lovely bride, that's where our first house was. So doing those little side deals. And then along the way, doing in my mortgage banking world there in Dallas, then I had other friends that we would put other little sidecar deals together, buying land that we knew that maybe an office building could go on near downtown Dallas with a couple of friends, and then other oil and gas things, variety of things.
I
So,
think about private credit too. I mean, you started lending money a long time ago as well.
well, how long are you talking about?
In my early days, I don't know when you started through the savings alone, being a balance sheet partner, but
Well, oh, my memories spun back to my wonderful big sisters who had elaborate spending habits, but I was the only one that had any cash. Their 10 or 11-year-old little brother, I would have cash and they would kind of borrow it from me, but I would charge them interest and it just would annoy the heck out of them. If you're going to go buy yourself a new pair of sunglasses and you don't have it, then, you know, I've got it. I used to have a little bank thing in it. And sometimes I've had, even back then in the late 60s, early 70s, it might have $1,000, $2,000 in it. And then I'd notice this from time to time. We lived in a little tiny house and it's like, some of my money's gone. And your Aunt Khaki would say, I didn't think you'd notice and I'll pay you back. And it's like, with interest, not to offend anybody because we love all people, but it was a little Jewish nature that I had there. So one last story about that was the fact that I realized they knew where my little bank was. So I thought, well, I'm going to hide this money where they'll never find it. So I put it in the different pages, the different volumes in the encyclopedia because I knew they'd never touch that.
they weren't reaching for the encyclopedias.
No more money went missing after that. Yeah, but doing those little things, then, loaning people money along the way. But let me just say, the first part of it was we just, as a family, we were good about saving money. My kind of idea was let's be a saver, not a spender first. And then you have money to spend when you want it or need it or give it. So we taught you all with our 3 little envelopes, save, spend, give. and with the money you would get over the years. And that was what we did. I mean, it's kind of what I did as a young bachelor.
Mm.
So, yeah, lending money, investing money, living modestly, living well within our means, take what little we had, put it to work on, and then had a mentor along the way say, "Hey, I'm going to tell you about the 80/20 rule." And he spelled out for me, if you can basically find way to invest your money, it will produce 80% of your income over time. And then basically the idea was passive income over time, let your money work for you, and then that will create flexibility in your time and your schedule to go to other endeavors. So the idea was spend 20% of your time making 80% of your money and let it compound. And so I'm just going to tell you it works. And many people that if there are a handful of people that listen to this, then they understand that. So it just grew over time. We would invest in different things, businesses here in Fredericksburg, real estate things, oil and gas things, businesses. We've had the privilege to help people start businesses, younger people than us, and then get involved in things that, like, as you know, projects that really bring joy to people, not just there for making money.
I was trying to recollect some of the things that I've seen over the years, and you already mentioned the organic beef business that we had going. You let
Yeah.
me run a little B&B business out of the guest house for a hot minute, and then we did antique store,
Yeah. A big antique store.
office buildings,
Yeah.
music venue.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of some of the other good ones. We've done, like, all the real estate, kind of all the different little real estate categories.
Any given time, we might be invested in 20 different things,
Yeah.
things that we could lead on, and then things that we would invest alongside other people with. As you know, one of the things I've been fond of, and anybody listening, if you're going to practice the stewardship, it's knowing where the money goes. And I just kind of caught on to those little programs. I used to do it all by hand every month of just keeping track of our family budget and our investment stuff by hand, mechanical pencil on ledger sheets. And then first one that came out was Microsoft had a manage your money, and that was cool. I could just kind of keep the ledgers in there. And then Quicken came along, and then now we have QuickBooks and all these other things. But have a Quicken program for yourself. It's so easy to do. And then you know where your money goes. And then some of my friends over the years would say, "Oh, I just don't have enough money." It's like, well, how are you keeping track of it? And then hand me their checkbook with their check register on. Is like, bro,
You don't
uh,
know where it's going.
I mean, like, where's the category? All I see is the number. Well, I just figure if I have enough money in there, it'll all work out. So, well, that's one approach. And if you make enough money where it doesn't matter, that's okay. But I think there's a better way, an informed way of helping you make decisions.
A few years back, you handed me the book, The Richest Man in Babylon, and scrolled on so many pages of that book. It says, "A part of all you earn is yours to keep." And there's this great little piece where the richest man in Babylon is sort of instructing these younger merchants who are just like, "How come we have no coins in our pocket? And you were just as poor as we were. And how come you have all the money?" And he just said, "I looked at the fishmonger and the shoemaker and all the people around me that I gave my money to, and I just decided it's not theirs. It's mine until I give it to them. And that a part of all my money is mine to keep."
Mm.
And he committed to that idea in a big way. So that's one of the great stories that you've passed on over the years.
Yeah, and it is. We know it's a mindset. It becomes a conviction, if you will, that there is a way that is tried and true. And we happen to mine those biblical principles that stood the test of time, and that informed the way we do virtually everything. And the mindset there is, like I mentioned earlier, is like, okay, we're going to apply our gifts and talents to things. And if we're fortunate to have a surplus or excess, then great. What can we go do things with? I mean, one of the things that we brought joy about the schools in our small town is it created jobs. And we always admired educators, and then bringing jobs to all the ancillary jobs that go with that. So job creation has been one of the things that as entrepreneurs that we've really enjoyed doing, being a part of.
I was going to bring up this concept of stewardship, and this is like the perfect place to bring that in. As you've built out the idea of stewardship over the years, what would you say are the core tenets? What is stewardship? And what makes stewardship good stewardship versus bad stewardship?
Okay, so let's take that idea of the mindset. So the stewardship idea is I don't own anything. I mean, God owns it all. We don't own anything. We're fooling ourselves thinking we own something. We're managers, and We've been blessed with the privilege of managing, as we say in our home, the king's resources. One of the things that happens, that mindset is, oh, it's not all up to me.
Mm.
And then it's like in in baseball, basketball, any of the sports things we've played, golf, tennis, when you're freed up, you just swing. If you feel like you own it and you're ultimately responsible for the outcome, ooh, that's a very tough burden to carry. The idea of stewardship is I'm a manager. So implicit in that to me has been freedom. There's a freedom there. We're free to go and exercise good judgment, to use good sound principles. But at the end of the day, I mean, we're not going to bat 1,000. If we lose something, we lose something. But it's not going to be the end of the road for us. And our identity is not tied up into it so much that if we lose, then we completely unravel. Is it fun? No, it's not. But we're realistic. So part of stewardship is the mindset of I'm a manager, not an owner, and there's freedom in that. And with that freedom comes a great opportunity to employ what I call the want to as opposed to the have to. If I think it's all up to me, and whoever's listening can say the same thing, if you feel like it's all up to you, then there's just a burden that we carry. And I believe God says, hey, if you want to do that, give it a shot. But there is another option, and we know what that option is. And it's like, I'm going to give it all back to the Lord and like, hey, would you show me what to do? I don't know what to do. And that posture of humility, I think you've seen over the years is a important posture to take as a steward. We need help. We need wisdom. We need a community. We weren't intended to go alone. And so those are some of the tenets. And then it trickles down into the idea of the want to versus the have to is when there's the release of that pressure to perform, I believe there's a clarity of mind that you can really get at what's important and what's not. And as you've heard me say many times, that the good is the arch enemy of the best. And we're after finding that little niche of the good and the best. Not the bad and the good, but the good and the best. And we're okay. It's a lot of what we're looking for with the things we seek out to put our hands to. I read that the first time in this little book here that's been a favorite of mine, My Utmost for His Highest by Oswald Chambers. I have another one here by Brother Lawrence called Practicing the Presence of Christ that I know people will know. But this is a good one. And that was the first time I probably in the 70s when I was reading that book, I thought, the good is the arch enemy of the best. So as a steward, I want to do the best for the king, also knowing that we're going to make mistakes. Does that help you? Is that
Oh,
where you
it's
want to go with that?
I think it's great. I think it's a great answer. I made a little note even on that, just hearing it all kind of put together in one long piece. It's comprehensive. And I think there's a lot of like pocket definitions of stewardship, sort of like take care of what you got. And I like that. Like that's a nice little definition, but it seems a little lightweight for I think what the concept of stewardship really is. As you think about tying that to these three core tenets of Covepilot, which are invest, we're going to practice stewardship. So you just sort of laid the groundwork there.
Mhm.
There's these three pieces. We're going to invest real, small, and away. We add that fourth one on there, which is together. And I think of together as being sort of multifaceted in that you have you and your investors, so like us as a team and all these wonderful people around us as well. So like there's the nuclear together, and then there's the investor together. We're going to go invest as a group, and there's benefits to that. Benefits of investing together that I don't have to make, me on myself, I could make one of these investments, but me
Right.
with everybody else, I can make one investment and get exposure to all these things just because the nature of minimums and the complexity. A lot of these deals, you have to be a qualified purchaser to make the investment, which is a huge hurdle. Not many individuals are qualified purchasers. And so that is a fun way to do it together. But then I also think about our managers, and you love to talk about the gray hair, and I know you're going to bring it up when you talk about the other three bits, but I wanted to talk about together. There's this idea that you do it together with your fund managers and the people who run the projects. There's a powerful mindset that as soon as you stop seeing those people as like they're taking my money, they're on the opposite side of the table, it's transactional. Like that transactional mindset honestly kills investment integrity. When you say, look, here's our money, I'm on your team, I want you to succeed. you want us to succeed and we're going to do this together as a group of people, you really raise the potential for success. And we've seen that in even some of our underlying managers, like especially the lenders in the group, the
Yeah.
lenders who invest together, they call people and say, "Look, you're about to default on your loan. What's going on? I don't want to foreclose on this thing. How can we work this deal out? I want you to be successful. I don't want to own your property. I want you to come borrow from me again in the future, but you can only do that if you're financially stable. How do I make you financially stable?" That attitude of let's do this together, I think is so permeating.
Yeah. That's good.
Stewardship is practiced real, small, and away together. I've just talked about together, but talk to me about real, small, and away.
Well, let me just reaffirm what you're saying on together, because what I think about that is, in the context of being fulfilling. Again, one of our aims in life is to have a life that's not perfect, not free from struggle. We have an opportunity to have a fulfilling life. And that fulfillment comes in doing things in community. And like you're talking, we use the word together. So just like those things, to collaborate with those managers, but also learn from them. Like we've learned a ton. Y'all know y'all have. I've learned a ton from looking at what they do. And I'm always intrigued at where did they come up with that idea? And I think it fans the flame of curiosity. That's one thing, even as an old guy, going to continue. It's like, I want to be curious about learning these things, hearing their story, and then co-laboring with them. They really appreciate the fact that we trust them enough to put our money with them. We treat it as a sacred trust for people to put money with us.
Mm.
So that togetherness, there's a lot of weight to it in my mind. So the real, we'll go back to the top parts, and we talk about real assets. We talked about that earlier, but something that has intrinsic value. We can touch it, kick it, walk around it. And as I say, in a downside situation, foreclose on it if we have to. We haven't had to, but they tend to stand the test of time. And there's a market for those things over time. Good times, bad times, there's always something there that we can put our hands to. So the real part is real assets. That's the meat of that one. Small had a couple of different
Yeah.
ideas to it. Is that we didn't necessarily want to be a big fund to be all end all for people. So it was a small group of people, and also we want to keep our business itself somewhat small. But I think it's small and mighty, small
Mm,
and agile,
yeah.
small and scrappy.
Nimble.
Um, yeah, nimble. There's not layers of bureaucracy. There are layers of trust, and there are huge layers of competence. So it's that glue that holds us together again.
I think of small too as being, if you picture the largest institutions in the world, nimble is not a word that you would ever use to describe them. Picture the Black Rocks of the world, huge insurance companies and pension funds that are investing. Those guys have to deploy, a $500 million in 6 months. They're filling a quota. Like, are they going to go find like the deal that's doing a 15% return, or are they going to be fine with like an 8? And then they're gonna go beat them up on the fees to get an 8.5% return. They lack agility in that space. And then there's this, we don't say micro. We don't describe ourselves as investing micro in a way, because I feel like at micro, you can take a lot of risk. But there's this nice, small, nimble space where you've got really smart people doing really competent, capable investing. And then you also have higher returns. And there's just this kind of nice bandwidth. And I feel like we're constantly just moving into that space.
I think it's really good. I like that. There's a lot of good tentacles to that idea of small, and I'm kind of just add the word again, intentionally small
Yeah.
for this reason. Now, again, it harkens back to something I started with, that simplicity is the highest form of sophistication. Not simple-minded, but simple in terms of the approach. So when things get larger, it creates complexity. And I think that's something that we've all, as a team, valued. We can be sophisticated. We don't have to be big. I think that's just what we're called to. Other people are fine with big. But that simplicity theme runs through most of our decision making. So real small away, sometimes that can really connote like, uh-oh, we're really out there. We're dangling on the limb and someone else has got the chainsaw on it. That's what we're talking about. I mean, away from what I continue to think of much more the herd mentality. That's kind of what I think of the most. Like when the madding crowd is chasing after something, I pretty much think, I don't know. I'm sensing that they may be chasing the wrong thing. So we can discern what's a way for us. But what we've also seen with our images of our website and things that we put print to, there is a sense of solace. There's a sense of quietude when you're away from the madding crowd, if you will. Those coves that we go to, think, man, yeah, I want to be there. I think away also means for me at times is like I can hear things better when it's not so cluttered with too many choices and too many people and too much what I'd call too many kind of esoteric ideas.
Mm.
So the away part is intentional again, and in terms of us gives us a chance to just operate in a smaller sphere. It's big enough, but it's away from the choppy waves if we can help it. We don't want to take on that. We don't want to take on a bunch of turbulence, and we don't want to take people on that because sometimes if you get too turbulent, your little tummy gets upset, and we know what happens there. So I think that is where my mind goes on those core tenets. And when you sum them all up, what I hope, what does in my own heart, my own spirit, is then I get to the word still, and then I get to the word calm. And I think what happens is the neuroscience folks really, they have the data and the research and all this is when your brain is calm, you make good decisions.
Mm.
When you're revving high, there's a lot of frenetic activity around you. Probably not the best time to make wise decisions. And there's plenty of opportunities in those small places. If we can go through life like that, it's like what a massive blessing.
I think that's a perfect place to land this little craft.
Yeah, let's put her down. We'll go on final approach here.
We got final approach here. Let's put the flaps down and put the landing gear down here with the understanding. And I would invite all of you who are listening to this. I'm planning on doing about 12 of these
Wow.
with my dad here. He doesn't know that yet, but
Okay.
this is episode 1, and I would say kind of the summary episode. This gives us a great picture of sort of the heartbeat and the history that drives into investing, the way that we think about investing. It's different. It is sort of, it's a way, not with the herd by design, but it's definitely not a condemnation or an indictment on anything else. We love all kinds of people and all kinds of conversations and all kinds of investments. So hopefully this gives some nice flavor. And then over the coming episodes, and part of this work too is just documenting these conversations. I mean, I've spent almost 40 years having conversations with my dad, and I've learned a ton over that time.
So have I, buddy.
It'd be great if a few other people could learn some of these things as well. They're invaluable.
It's so kind.
Yeah.
Wow, it's a privilege to share it, privilege to walk the walk with you, and anybody else that wants to lock arms with us and keep on this curious road. So, yeah, thank you for doing it, and I love you and so proud of you.
I love you too, Dad. Thanks all of you for listening to the At Depth podcast. You can subscribe to this and other episodes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. If you're old school and you like it in your inbox, then just go to atdepthpodcast.com and subscribe there. It'll pop into your inbox whenever we post a new episode. They come out about every 2 weeks. If something in this conversation resonated with you, if you're trying to invest real small in a way, feel free to email me, ben@pivotal.com, pivotol.com. And I can connect you with my dad. I can connect you with my brother-in-law. You can also find out a lot more at covepilot.com. That's Cove, C-O-V-E, pilot.com. Thank you for being here, and thank you for choosing to join us at Depth today. And thank you, Dad.
And just let me add to, bud, you can give him my number. I'm happy to process anything with anybody, any topic, large or small. It's a real privilege to do that.
I think that'll be the topic of our next podcast will be living life with an open door policy before it was cool.
Okay, yeah. The fishbowl, as we say.
The fishbowl. Thank you all for joining us at Depth, and thanks, Dad.
Okay, adios.